perfect. Just that outlap. The outlap cost me. Without that outlap, I would be here today celebrating a win.
Hello and welcome to that F1 show. What you heard before our intro music was Carlos Sainz after his second place finish in Monaco last weekend. What he's referring to basically is Perez was in the lead, Sainz came into pit, and then got released from the pit lane as Perez came in. Sainz, completing his out lap, got stuck behind a Williams, so Perez was able to come out in front of him. If that hadn't happened, if he hadn't been stuck behind the Williams, there's a chance that Sainz would have been in front, and that's pretty much how the race ended in those positions. So Sainz narrowly misses out on his first ever F1 win, which is a bit of a... He's had an unfortunate season so far, Roger. I'll go through the... His first race was in Bahrain, positive start, Ferrari 1-2, in which case he came second. And then the next race at Saudi Arabia, he came third. So strong start to what was looking to be a very strong Ferrari season. And then in Australia, he had a DNF with a mistake on lap 2 where he was going into a chicane, underbraked, skid across the grass and into the gravel and got beached. Then the next race at Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix or Romagna. Before the race weekend, signs a 2-year contract extension, and then goes out in the first lap again in the gravel. So at this point, you're like, oh gosh, what's going on? It just doesn't look great for a Ferrari driver, especially at your home race.
Yeah.
To do that, and especially when his partner Charles Leclerc is finishing so strong. And then in Miami finishes third. The Spanish Grand Prix finishes fourth, although he spins out in, I think it's free practice 3. And then in Monaco finished second. So in my head, Carlos Sainz wasn't having a great year until I went back and reviewed that. It was just he's made a few mistakes. He's had a few tiffs here and there.
Yeah.
But again, that's easy. I probably think that because Leclerc is outperforming him massively.
Yeah.
What do you think? You're a Ferrari fan. How have you looked at it?
I think that he is better than he is driving at the minute. At the same time, I don't think he's driving bad at all. He had those mistakes. So the Ferrari, home of Ferrari Grand Prix, it was not the Italian Grand Prix, just close by, where the Ferraris are made. That is such a home to them. But if you remember, that was a little touch with Ricciardo at the start, and Ricciardo obviously reluctantly wanted to say sorry. So that's just driving. So that has to go down as not Carlos's thing. So let's set that one to the side.
Although he did have a poor start to the race, which got him into that position.
He did, but he's had poor starts before, and he's finished strong.
Sure.
So I think that... So Leclerc then had a really poor... Do you remember he made the mistake at the same Grand Prix, and that's what dropped him back, and he had to start making up from 11th, 10th, 9th, and made his way up, I think, to 6th. So Leclerc wasn't up there, so he would have been on the podium in that race, if not second. I don't think he would have challenged. Max just had too much speed on that race, but I think he maybe could have got second if he was in that, which would have completely changed the outlook for it, and it's just one per race. Now, the thing that what you'd look at is the little incidences in the practice sessions. Things like Miami, whenever he had the crash there as well. Those are moments whenever you're like, he shouldn't be making these mistakes as a Ferrari driver, as someone who's in a car that could potentially win the championship. So those are the ones that I would look at more, but I think his race is strong. And you've also, I think there's always a pressure. Every driver wants to win a race. If there's an even bigger pressure if you're in a car that should win the race. So he is there, and the Ferrari was the better car in Monaco. Whenever Leclerc and tactics went bad, that was Sainz's moment. And I think what we're going to see is once he gets his first win, and I would say it's going to. I think it'll be this season. He will win a race this season. Whenever he does that, I think we will see a slight different side to him that will do so much for confidence, and he will flourish from that. He really will. But
I completely agree. Sorry, do you think what was sorry?
I think I said, do you think he will win?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's got, like you say, he's got a winning car.
Do you think though that he has the potential then to beat Leclerc or Max?
Well, if Bottas can win in a season against where he's in the same team as Lewis Hamilton, I think Sainz can very much win against Leclerc.
Or Pastor Maldonado back in that season, or Gasly. All those things, like whenever, there's always a potential, but
yeah. 100%. And last year he finished strong as well. His end of season was phenomenal. And last season he capped 4 podiums and he finished 5th overall, where Charles Leclerc finished 7th, still being Ferrari's number 1 last year.
Yeah.
So it's clear he can drive. It's clear he's a very good driver. I think absolutely he just needs a bit of confidence. And when you DNF 2 races in a row, you lose a lot of time in the car.
You do.
Especially when you do it so early in a race. So
what I really liked about Monaco was if you looked at the podium and celebrate, like he just wasn't happy. And you could see, and I love that he's not happy with second in Monaco. Like that's a big telling sign. Like most drivers would give anything, first of all, to win the podium in Monaco. Like it's such a hard race to win. Like so many champions have never won that, they were saying. But so he was gutted to be second. And I was like, this is good. This shows a fighter, and it shows someone who really is there to win and for the team and everything. So
he's clearly, I think he's clearly a good driver, but he also is very mentally strong, and he knows his place in the team very well. And I don't mean as number 2. He's confident enough in his ability to make calls against Ferrari, and that showed in Monaco. They were like, we want to bring you in.
Does it show his confidence in himself or his lack of confidence in the team?
Confidence in himself. I would say there's plenty of times where they will call him in and he'll come in. But, I don't know. It's a hard one, especially after how Ferrari performed in that race with botching up Leclerc's race as well.
Yeah. It is a known thing. You can see afterwards whenever they're talking to some of the other team principals and the commentary afterwards, it's a known thing. It has been for probably about 6-7 years now that Ferrari's tactics just are not good. Like whenever I watch it with Abigail, my wife, we're watching a race and the Ferrari are doing well, she's like, even whenever they come into a pit, she's just like, they're going to mess this up, aren't they? Like she's always like, something is not going to go right here because of the 2 of the best drivers, but you're just waiting for that thing to go wrong. But I think like they may mess up on occasion, but they're still like they're not there because they're inadequate at their job. Like they're clearly like some of the best in the world. Yeah.
So I think from that point of view, he was out there. He saw sort of how it was drying up. As much as they see data, he sees like tire on track and could see that a dry line was appearing a lot quicker than they were saying, and that to go straight. So if you didn't watch it, most people started on wets and went to intermediates, which is still a wet weather tire, and then progressed onto the dry weather tires as the race went on. Sainz thought in order to save a pit stop, it was best to go from wets to a dry weather tire, and Ferrari called him in to move to intermediates, and he said no. He challenged them and said no. They told him to come in anyway, and then came back to him and said, actually no, stay out.
Yeah.
And if there hadn't been a Williams in the way, that decision alone probably could have won him the race.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, Ferrari clearly see a future in him because they gave him a 2-year contract extension to 2024 at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. And I was looking it up actually. So, Sainz's starting salary at the beginning, his salary at the beginning of the 2022 season, was $10 million. Okay. So, obviously, in a contract extension in sport, I assume it means a pay raise guaranteed.
Yeah.
There's a reason to keep him.
Yeah.
And he has to have a reason to stay to an extent, so you have to give him more money. So he's you'd imagine into the teens of the millions, which is phenomenal considering sort of last, where he's come from the last few years. So so he's clearly done well. But that's the thing. So he's had 2 DNFs, but he's finished, where are we? Let's see, second, third, DNF, third, fourth, second. So he's finished no lower than fourth when he's finished. Yeah. And he's 44 points behind Max and 33 points behind Leclerc.
Yeah.
So, and 7 races into the season
whenever you think that Leclerc nearly had a 40-point lead over Max and how quick that's changed. So if he has a win and say it's
Leclerc comes second,
he wins it, gets the fastest lap or whatever, things can change. I don't think I think he will.
And there's plenty of opportunities for Red Bull to not finish. Yeah. You could say that they've figured it out with their performance issues, but it could just be one waiting to rear his head. So a Red Bull could DNF, which changes it.
What I'm really hoping for is Perez just gets a wee bit more feisty and starts to challenge Max on the tracks that they are quick. That's what I'm so hoping for that. Bring a bit of Rosberg Hamilton action back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what you want. And that's the thing, when I was reading up about Sainz, everyone is very aware of how well him and Leclerc get on. And I think we touched on this in the sort of pre-season podcasts, in that I can't, hopefully it gets to a point where they're neck and neck and it's just a case of who fights harder to finish ahead, because then that'll see whether they're boys or whether they're, and I mean boys as in best mates, or whether they're just individuals trying to win and at anyone's expense. So hopefully Sainz can get a few, at least a race win, if not a couple. And it's the sort of thing, I think, which you were alluding to, is once he gets one, that could start a list of quite a few. Because he's an excellent driver, clearly. So if after 2 years he's not at Ferrari, he'll probably go to a top team. Yeah. Assuming his 2023 and 24 aren't horrendous.
Yeah, that's true. I think he'll do well, and it'll be, because as we're standing there and him trying to challenge for wins, I do think that we will see a little bit of a comeback from the Mercedes guys as well. Obviously Russell's doing well, but I do think that Monaco was, for Hamilton, I think it was a little bit of a blip, and he'll just brush that one off. And next week, I think we've got one of the longest straights in Formula One, even though it's not fully straight. They're full on flat out.
Aye, they're flat out,
DRS and everything. So I think that Red Bull and Mercedes will be strong this next track. We know Ferrari's strength is the quick, slow corners. Whenever I say quick, slow, you know what I mean? The slow ones, but we get through them, they're not big, long, slow ones. So I think that this is going to be a track that will favour Red Bull, and has done, that we've seen in the past as well. So I think it's going to be good, and hopefully we'll get a bit of Russell Verstappen action as well, because that looked good in Barcelona. Yeah, whenever we had that, so it'll be good.
Yeah, and anything can happen in that first corner, Azerbaijan. Bit of a rundown to it, not too long, but it just congests and everyone just gets pulled into this right-hander. This 90-degree left-hander. I meant a right angle. So there could be safety cars, there could be broken wings and flat tires very easily in this race. So
definitely could be.
Which will play into my prediction probably next week. With well, like at that point, it's just guesswork who hits who or whatever. But I mean, more in our top 10 prediction. No, he'll be at the back unless he just forgets to brake and goes straight into someone.
It's like you used to do whenever you got your Formula One game. It's like you played it for ages and you tried to do your season, and then there's just that moment whenever a friend comes around and
No damage on.
Yeah, no damage. Just go for it, or jump the lights and go and turn around as quick as you can and just drive straight towards them.
Yeah.
Those moments are great.
With that in mind, F1 2022 game comes out on the 1st of July.
Oh, does it?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know this.
So I'll put the trailer in the description below. So if you're listening, you can click on that and see it.
Is it just new cars? Have you got anything new?
Yeah, well, new cars. Obviously, Miami's there. They'll do sprint races if you're doing the seasons.
Oh, good.
And there's probably
I got the 2021 game, and I loved the story aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
They done it so you were a driver and you had different things to do, and there's a bit of a rivalry, inter-team rivalry going on, and then there's one guy. It's very, very good. Just for me, it's too short. Like I had completed it in I think 2 days. Like, and I'm not a big gamer, so I don't sit down like a long time. But just up one Saturday morning, I think I had a bit of a play, and then same on a Sunday morning, and it's really good. I so got into it, and so I'd love to do that, but just longer. I think it was only like a season or maybe 2 seasons, but if they could do that and pull the story out a little bit more, it was really good. So fair play to them for doing that and not just being like go in and set up a race and that's it.
Yeah. So yep, 1st of July 2022. Not that we're like being paid to say this, but you can I think pre-order it now. So go do that. It was strange actually because they released an advert for F1 Manager 2022 like back in March, and I was like, oh, and it's like I think it's like almost solely from the managerial side of things.
Wow.
And I was worried that is this going to be in like replacing F1 2022 the game, because they hadn't mentioned it at all, but no, thankfully it's not.
Is that actually a thing as well?
Yeah, it just says come in 2022. It doesn't say a date. So
I
think it's like a full on PlayStation game as opposed to like a mobile app or whatever, or Xbox and PlayStation.
I have they've done that a number of, like, I'm talking a good few years ago. Like I remember having a game similar on it's probably pixels going around the screen, but you had to really go through like the cost of so many different things. You had to look at whenever you had to really plan your pit stops before the race. You had plan B, plan C. You had to have your finance sorted. You had to employ the guys, like different people. Who do you want? Who don't you want? Is there somebody coming from a different team who you want to try and get? It's great. So hopefully they can, if they do that, anyone who likes Football Manager and all that stuff will love this sort of Oh, I'm excited.
So then the only other news in a slow news week for F1 is Sergio Perez got a new contract, as Horner said it was a no-brainer. So congratulations, Sergio Perez. You thought maybe he didn't, after last season you weren't convinced on Perez, I think, because I remember talking to you and you, what was it? I think, I can't remember. Was it?
That's
I
okay.
didn't think, at a point you weren't convinced that Perez was the right call to stick with.
Maybe not in last season. If you look at his stats this season to last season and where he is, points difference, he didn't have a great first half of the season last year. Yes, he is a huge team player towards the end of the season and massively changed things. But I just don't. This season is so much better. So if you ask me now, I'd be 100%. But then going back to last season,
Sorry,
I said,
I know what it is. I think he was on a 1-year deal and they renewed it pretty early on in last season, and that's when you were like, I don't think he's. I don't think that was a good call. But
I'm trying to think back, but I probably would have been thinking that you've got to watch what's happened with Gasly again. I know he's been there, and it was maybe a wee bit of a premature move putting him with Max. But I think that was probably also halfway through the season around the time of Monza, whenever Gasly. No, it was the year before, wasn't it?
Yeah, year before Gasly won.
But whenever you looked at how he drove again the season after, um, Gasly is a phenomenal driver, and I think at the minute he's not doing great, and I think it's because he's just frustrated. He's just like, there's no seats now at the top. He's in this team. The only other team he can go to is McLaren, and now there's questions marks around Ricardo, but I think that car has the potential to rival in McLaren at the minute, like that he's in. But there's still like he's not going to win races with either.
No, not at all.
Unless it's a random one again, like the race that he did win. But he Gasly is a phenomenal driver. He really is. Obviously, unfortunate Monaco Grand Prix, but whenever you've seen, he was one of the ones who risked it. He's just like, I'm far back anyway. Let's go for us, and he done so well.
He just couldn't get past. Was it Guan Yu Zhou? He held him up for. I suppose that's just Monaco for you. Just can't overtake, even though you're so much faster.
Yeah.
And
even
otherwise,
he overtook Ricardo. So if you're wanting to make a statement, wanting that seat, like he done it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ricardo. Actually, he's a phenomenal driver. We know that the car is just not a car designed for him and his stuff.
Yeah, we can talk. I suppose we'll let that Ricardo story unfold a little bit, and then we can chat about it on the next break. But obviously Perez has shown that he's worthy of a Red Bull seat for the next couple of years. He's been great, and obviously bar team orders could have won a race, so or won another race because obviously he won Monaco. So congratulations to him. His starting salary at the start of 2022 was $8 million. So probably up at least into double figures, if not a good bit into double figures.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Which is great considering I'm sure he was nowhere near what he is in pay. Like I'm sure he took a huge pay increase to go to Red Bull. There's no way asked like Force India were paying him no. into the high single figures. So he's done like for maybe not having a seat in his F1 career being over to now. Being one of the top drivers on the grid. I'm so happy for him. He deserves it.
He does.
So another topic that's been coming up and building is this whole budget cap situation. Particularly, I think Horner and Toto Wolff and Binotto of Ferrari are the main ones driving it. So if you haven't heard, every Formula One team this year has a budget of $140 million or £119 million for pretty much everything. That covers everything. So up until the end of the season. But what the guys, the top team bosses are saying now is that because of inflation and the cost of parts and everything, there's no way that they can possibly meet that 140. Roger, as we were speaking before, and you were saying the budget cap isn't on your radar hugely. So, to let you know, so the budget, because my first question was, well, what's actually included in the budget cap? Is it just during the season? And then you're like, flip, how much does a car cost to build? Like parts. I did hear like a front wing's like 300 grand alone. So if anyone touches a barrier or whatever, that's 300 grand they need to rebuild. What's included in the budget cap is car design and development, which is obviously the main one, component manufacture and testing of those components, and then race operations. So that pretty much covers everything. So that means basically...
So that's like salary of mechanics?
So, yes, salaries of mechanics. There's a few exemptions. Just to go back. So, included in the budget cap is car design and development, component manufacture and testing. So that's everything they're doing back in the factories. And race operations, obviously what we see on TV and everything that goes on there. There are a few exemptions. So power units are exempt. So that's effectively your engine, is it not?
Yeah.
I assume that's because they have to buy it from third parties, a lot of them, or whatever, so it sort of evens that up, because obviously if Red Bull are developing their own engine, they can do that for a lot less than McLaren buying from Mercedes. Power units are exempt, marketing and hospitality is exempt, so, and I assume that means the salaries for your marketing and hospitality. So that will be everything from adverts you see on social media to the hospitality tents. Say, I'm sure Ferrari and all those guys have big hospitality suites for all the guests they invite, and then also travel. So traveling to and from races, everything there is also exempt. Interestingly, drivers' salaries are not included. Not included right now. So I think that may be something to weave in as they go, but that obviously gives the wealthier teams a huge advantage. If Mick Schumacher comes on the market, there's not a chance of, say, Alfa Romeo luring him in if they can't pay him a fraction of what Ferrari are willing to pay him. So there is a bit of a discrepancy there, which is why I believe it will eventually tie in. And then the top 3 salaried employees of each team are exempt too. So obviously that means, like, I assume Toto Wolff is one of the top 3 salaried employees, like those guys. That's not exempt. So again, you can attract the best talent to your team if you're willing to pay over and above. So again, a bit unfair in the small teams, but everything else is included in that 140 million. So yeah, you'd think 140 million, like, surely if you're excluding...
It really sounds a lot, but for such a huge sport that we know obviously costs money, it's like, put that to the likes of, how much did Mbappe sell for?
Mbappe? Well, he was on the market, I think, for 200 million.
Yeah, so he cost one player for one team in cost more than a Formula One team for the year, paying so many salaries. So whenever you put it, and they say that the Formula One is the expensive sport, like, I'd say that it's, like, it actually surprised me. I thought it would have been it's a lot of money, but for something that makes way more than that, it's not actually that much. If there's 2,000 people, as we said before, there's 2,000 people within the Mercedes team, from Toto the whole way down to making Formula One happen. There's 2,000 people. Divide it 114 million by 2,000 to get the salary amount, and then you've got to make a car and everything. It's not that much. Even though I think it used to be that they say each tire was £500, like a tire, and we know how many they take to Grand Prix, and so it does, like, it's a lot of money. But I think in something where these Formula One is about the sport, it's also about developing cars. If you look at sports cars now, even the way the gear, you change paddle gears and behind the steering wheel, that was brought in because of Formula One. Loads of things are done within our transport of cars because Formula One tried to do these things. So to make it better for everybody globally in cars, the more you pull back what they can do and the amount that they have, I think that I hope they don't do too much. Yes, do you need a cap of some sort to make it fair and make it an even sport? But I think that the more you do it, the more you restrict, it just restricts. And I think that there can be other sports that will then start, or a group of mechanics or something, be like, we should go and do this. Like, you've got things starting, and I think that could get a little bit. Yeah.
So it's 140 million this season, 135 next year, and then 130 the year after that.
And I totally get it. So we live in the UK, and I know people are listening to this around the world, but inflation for us mostly is about, what, 9% they're saying for the year. Like, that's a huge amount, and that's just, so for a team, yes, parts are going up, like where things are being manufactured, and all of that, everything's going to rise. Like, they're not going to get an email from Pirelli saying, just to let you know, we are reducing your tire cost by 5% next year just to help with the budget cap. I guess it's not going to happen. Now they might get an email from Michelin and Bridgestone or Goodyear saying, "Here, we used to be Formula One, we used to be good. Do you want us back, and we'll do it for less?" We might see things like that, which could be interesting. But I think that um, I totally get why they're saying this. This just like if salary is included in that, it's just hard on mechanics and the amount of time you stay away from home and all of the above.
Well, this is well, Horner said like he didn't want it to become the accounting world championship where basically the guys who could
Yeah,
fudge the numbers and do all that stuff win
yeah,
the championship. But equally, it seems to be it's really just those top three who are complaining. You've got the likes of Alpine, Alfa Romeo, and it wasn't Haas. Can't remember who else.
yeah,
Were saying, "What are you talking about? 140
yeah,
million, that's plenty." So it seems to
yeah.
be the boys who can spend maybe aren't being allowed to spend, which is maybe the
Yeah, I would also
discrepancy.
I would also in that the only one who I'd be surprised hasn't said it is McLaren. Simply because if Ferrari have stated it, Alfa Romeo and has to be like, here, you said it, we're going with you. Similar to uh,
No, no, as in Ferrari are saying we can't possibly stay under 140 million, but
yeah, as in like
Alfa
not
Romeo are
that's it.
saying, yeah, but Alfa Romeo are saying we can absolutely stay below
Oh,
140
there's
million.
so they have said let's do it.
Yeah, no, they say that's just the big boys complaining. 140 million
Oh, sorry, I
is
thought you meant they've just stayed silent on it.
no, 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 no. It's those like Alpine, Alfa Romeo, and I think one
They
other.
want it because they want
They
the
are like
challenge.
140 million is plenty. What are you complaining about? If you
Yeah,
go above it, you should be penalised. So, but and a point they made, I can't remember which team principal said it, or whoever was interviewed. They were saying that you set your budget before the season. Obviously, you map out the entire season, what everything will
yeah,
cost. Obviously, the end of the season was December, so the start of the next season is December. And they were saying in December, inflation was 7.5%. So it's not like it's gone up massively. It's gone
yeah,
up, but
yeah,
we were already working on 7.5% inflation. Therefore, it's not as big as you're making it out to be.
yeah.
Wise up and just race. So again, I think there's a there's a 5%. Is it 5%? It's either 5% or 5 million. Um, allowance where if you go over it by, so let's just say for this 5%, um, then it's seen as a minor infraction and
Yeah.
therefore will carry less of a penalty. But I think the penalties come that time are completely up to the FIA's discretion. So
Okay.
it's not like you go over by a million, this is what
Yeah.
happens. It's
And do you know, does you might not know this, but that's the budget cap for development. If you can bring in more sponsors throughout the year, can you add money to your team? What happens to sponsorship money? So Haas is sitting there with very few sponsors on.
well, I
Say
suppose
they're not
it doesn't matter what comes in. It's all about what goes out.
but what money coming in has to go out in some way.
Yeah, so say
Like they're not
Haas,
going to just
say
put it in the bank
Spotify
account
came
and
in,
save it.
say Spotify came in and gave Haas 100 million to represent
Yeah,
their or to be on their car.
yeah.
They still have to be within 140 million. It doesn't matter what you get.
So
So
okay,
if they have only spent 120,
yeah,
then they have 20 million to play with.
yeah,
So, but then I also don't know where the cutoff is because obviously a lot of guys start developing for next year
yeah,
once this season gets out of the way. So I don't know what falls into that
yeah.
year, but
Getcha.
it's a thing that will probably start to play out towards the like probably after maybe 15 races, 16, 17 races where you're starting to get into the last few races and teams are starting to be more stretched and start to approach that
Yeah.
threshold, which is again way above my head. I don't know, like,
Interesting.
is it
Thank
a
you for
case if
sharing
they
that.
budget?
Though. It's
Oh
good.
no.
But it's something I haven't looked at much.
Yeah, my first question was, well, what's covered in that 140 million? And
Yeah.
apart from driver salaries right now and power units, travel, marketing, and the top three salaries, everything else is included.
Yeah.
So I think that was good to know. But yeah, I think it's been a slow news week, so there hasn't been much to come out. Azerbaijan is next weekend. And as Azerbaijan, for those of you who haven't seen it, is a phenomenal race. As Roger said, a long, flat-out section. At least two DRS zones, with good long straights, and then it goes up into the old town. There's a few technical, very tight corners. So it's great to watch, and will probably, as you say, be a Red Bull are best on straight line speed this year. Ferrari are better around short corners. So it seems to be that it'll favour Red Bull.
Yeah, I'd say
but
so.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
It can. It'll be. I'll not say who my driver is now, but I know who I think I'm gonna pick for this one. Is it my pick first?
I think
Or is it your
it's
pick first?
no, it is yours because I chose Vettel last time, and that.
Okay.
So yeah, we haven't plugged it too much recently, but the Fantasy F1 League is still a thing. So if you're watching it on YouTube, our code's on the screen at the moment. Otherwise, you can find it in the show notes below. But log on, set your team before qualifying on Saturday, and we'll see who comes out on top. And then, as ever, you can follow us everywhere on that F1 show on every social media. And if you go on YouTube and search that F1 show, you'll find us as well. So thanks for listening, and we'll break down the Azerbaijan Grand Prix next week. We'll speak to you then. Cheers, Roger.
Thanks, Alan.